talk us through the journey of why Muay Thai and why you're so passionate about it.
Combat sports and fight sports has taught me since a young age. You know, I was very fortunate to grow up in one of the first Muay Thai gyms in Western Australia. My parents did it for the family business. So,
talk to me like Champions Gym. So you guys have 3 gyms now. Talk us through how you actually set up the business and how that all came about.
We started the business because after I stopped competing and fighting in my teenage years from 13 to 19, I really wanted to stay involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after I quit fighting, I went down a deep, dark path of, losing a sense of identity.
You had just previously had a horrendous experience. You were with another big agency. Can you talk us through that experience, if you don't mind?
For us, it was, we had a really bad experience in terms of the service promised and the actual delivery of the service that was received wasn't great.
So what did they promise you?
So we signed up to the...
Welcome to Diary of the Search Queen, the go-to podcast for salon owners ready to ditch the algorithm and get found by their dream clients on Google. I'm Sonja Raymond, aka Sonja the Search Queen, founder of The Search Republic, and after helping salons generate millions in client bookings, I'm here to show you how to create a reliable, low-stress lead flow without living on your phone. Ready to stop chasing and start filling chairs with ease? Let's go. Welcome to this week's episode of Diary of the Search Queen. I have a very, very, very special guest with me today. I have one of my fabulous clients, Pamorn from Champions Gym. And I wanted to give him the opportunity to come on and speak on the podcast, and also I wanted to introduce you to what it is that Pamorn actually does. So firstly, Pamorn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sonja. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Before I flick to you, I'm going to just read out your bio so everybody gets a bit of a feel for what it is that you do, because you and Whitney are quite the powerhouse couple. But Pamorn is a lifelong martial arts coach and founder of Champions Gym in Perth with roots in Muay Thai. Going back to his childhood, Pamorn has spent years competing, coaching and building a community that's about more than just fitness. It's about discipline, confidence and becoming the best version of yourself. Champions Gym has helped thousands of everyday people step out of their comfort zones and into stronger, more powerful versions of themselves. Whether it's someone walking the path of their first class or a fighter preparing in the ring, Pamorn brings the same energy, honest, focused and driven by purpose. He's big on fundamentals, consistency and doing the work. So welcome to the podcast. Now, Pamorn, I wanted to just flick to you guys and tell me, like, what does your average person actually look like and how do they normally find you, and where do you, like, talk us through the journey of why Muay Thai and why you're so passionate about it?
You know, doing the normal gym, they've tried, walking on a treadmill, running on a treadmill, picking things up and putting them down. It gets to a stage where they get a little bit bored of what they're doing, and then they want to do something a little bit more involved, to be a part of a community, to be a part of something more, as well as building a sense of health and fitness and strength and confidence. They also want to be able to learn skills as well, which are helping build, things like your discipline, your confidence, like I mentioned earlier, and then also, a sense of resilience, which is a big thing. And that's definitely something that combat sports and fight sports has taught me since a young age. I was very fortunate to grow up in one of the first Muay Thai gyms in Western Australia. My parents did it for the family business. So we didn't have a choice whether you wanted to do it or not. It was part of what we did. I guess I didn't know any better. The other part of your question was, I've forgotten, but you feel free to ask because I'm starting around.
It's not like you to be shy, Pamorn. We normally have the shits and giggles all the time. I've caught you on the spot.
It's been a long time since I've done a podcast, but yeah, you're right.
You have so much confidence. You're oozing confidence. I've probably put you on the spot now. And talk to me, like, Champions Gym. So you guys have 3 gyms now. Where, like, talk us through that whole journey of how you actually set up the business and how that all came about.
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting story. We started back in 2012. Myself and Whitney, we started the business because, I've always, after I stopped competing and fighting in my teenage years from 13 to 19, I really wanted to stay involved. After I quit fighting, I went down a deep, dark path of, losing a sense of identity. I won the Australian title at 17.
Business, was it?
No, prior. So
yeah,
I'll just give you a bit of a backstory. So I lost a lot of sense of self-identity after stopping competing at a high level. When I lived in the country and played country footy, worked as an education assistant at the school where my mum worked. And then I kind of just felt like something was missing. And when I looked around in the world that I was surrounded by, there was a lot of adults, and when I say adults, people 18, 20, 30, that would spend a lot of their time at the pub, or they would be doing things that weren't great, such as drugs and partying. And I thought to myself, I wish these people could see there's a better way. of living their lives. And yeah, sure, like having a good time is great. How can I help people live longer based upon what I know? And so I started training people in the local gymnasium up in Mora. And it started with 2 or 3 people and ended up being 10 to 15, 20 people per session towards the end of it. And that's when I realized that, like, I really enjoyed coaching and passing on kind of the principles of martial arts, combat sports, Muay Thai, because, you know, it changed me as a person. It carved out who I was and who I am today. And when I came back to Perth, you know, there was this little lady that I always had the hots for in my dad's gym, and I wasn't competing training anymore, but I kind of just...
Make sure everyone's listening, because this is such the romantic story.
Nah, I asked one of the boys and they said, that's Whitney. And I tried for a long time to ask her for a date, but never happened, and I just kept at it. So I kept at it, but I gave up. And then a year later, I don't know how it happened, but, you know, I got a message on my birthday, and then from there it was just a date. And from there, you know, like, I fell in love with this woman because she has a different way of thinking, you know. She's been raised by her grandma from a very young age. She has a sense of being able to think outside the box when it comes to seeing the positives in life. And she's a very tough person as well, you know, had quite a very storied upbringing. And I really felt like this sense of connection in the way that we like to help people. And her sense of care and the way she likes to help people may be a little bit different to mine. But what we found when we started Champions Gym was that we kind of shared that passion. So, yeah, I continued the coaching here in Perth in a very small scale. I started training a lot of Whitney's friends for fun and fitness because at the time, Victoria's Secrets was a big thing on TV, and you know, they were doing kickboxing, which had never been heard of, and they're like, let's do more of this. I know a guy that knows a guy, and they bring him down, they come train with us. And, you know, a small group of 3 to 4 women turned into 15, 20 women in a session. And again, we realized we needed to have a bricks and mortar business where we weren't kind of renting out a space and training people anymore. And it was funny because there were so many places that we looked and it just didn't suit, didn't fit. And the prices for rent and, you know, the outgoings were ridiculous at this time, no different to today. Until Whitney drove past a place where on Lord Street in Highgate, where she said, let's go check out this place. You got to go up a flight of stairs, 150 square meters. And then sure enough, we thought, let's just give it a go. Let's see where it takes us. And we took on a lease. Within a year, we had to expand to downstairs, 340 square meters.
And that was 2012?
2012, yeah, and by 2013 we'd expanded downstairs and moved to a bigger space because we needed the space due to the, you know, everyone wanted to train and be a part of this great sense of community that we created. And I guess the way we teach and the way we like to help others improve themselves or push them towards their own greatness. That's my sort of mentality and motto. Fast forward all these years later, we end up expanding down to Maya Reid, south of the river. A lot of people were like, why do you want to work with more people? I was like, well, why not? Like, for me, a lot of people talk about work, and it doesn't feel like work when you get to give people a sense of belief in themselves. It doesn't feel like work when you get people reach out and they're like, hey, I just did this at work, and without the training and the philosophy you've given me, I wouldn't be able to achieve that. And I'm like, that's great. I want to work with more people and do that for more people where possible. And then later down the line, we opened up in Joondalup. Bit of a backstory, people don't know about Joondalup. I started coaching there out of the, it's like a rec centre, I can't remember the name of it, but as a 16-year-old helping my dad, it was kind of like going back to my roots, being part of the Joondalup. So yeah, we've got 3 locations, and it's been one of what I would call a bit of a, you know, up and down journey. But the thing that I really kind of got me hooked to talk to you today, Sonja, was a sense of resilience, because without fight sports, I probably wouldn't have it. It's helped me in different ways in business, and the journey that myself and Whitney have been down as well.
And you guys are amazing. Like, I'm always inspired by your journey. Like, and when you share your business journey, and there's so many aspects that obviously we relate to on this side as well, but hone in the resilience piece in business. So talk us through some of your tough moments in business and how did you overcome that?
Wow. Well, there's been many a time. We're right back to the beginning that I would say probably one of the most challenging things as a business owner was starting a business from nothing. You start with nothing and you give 100% to it and more. And, you know, people talk about starting a business and doing what you want. And that was my original mentality, you know. Whitney worked a full-time job, HR. She'd done the hard yards in university, and it got to a stage where we realized that, you know, where was her focus where was her attention better focused towards? And that's where she left that and stepped into the role. But leading up to that, you wear many hats. You're the marketer, you're the cleaner, you're the receptionist, you're the coach, you're the director. There's so many different hats that I wore in the beginning, and juggling that and not getting paid much at all as a starting out business, and the humble beginnings as I think back. That was probably one of the most challenging times. But I think to myself, if you stay the course and you surrender yourself to knowing that the longer you stay in something, the more skills you're going to learn, and then the better you're going to grow from it. That's what I believe. Same as like when you're coming up and you've had a couple of fights in the ring, you want to become state and national world champion. I believe that if you keep winning fights, keep getting the results, or keep learning from your losses, eventually that something's going to come of that. And that's the sort of mentality that Whitney and I have had for a long time with Champions Gym, in terms of bringing on staff, having staff do the wrong thing by you, have been stolen from. We've had people lie straight to your face. We've had months where things have not gone so well in terms of financial losses. People have left you bad reviews, and people have left customer, shit talk on social media. At the end of the day, it's all about understanding that people are going to feel a certain way, and we always strive to do our best from our heart in terms of what we want to provide and the experience that we want to provide. In terms of resilience, there's always going to be people saying things regardless if you do good or regardless if you do bad.
Everyone has an opinion, and the only opinion that matters is the one that you have of yourself, and fuck them all.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's definitely something that you learn over time.
You learn, and it doesn't come natural, I think, when we first start out in business. And I think that when you think about, like, when I think back to those humble beginnings myself, and I speak about it massively in my book, is that, you care so much about what people think, and fear of being judged, the fear of failure, and all those things. And the only reason why we fear all of that is because we're conditioned to care, because obviously in school we're all conditioned to be the same, and the minute you stand out, you're reprimanded.
Yeah, that's very true, because when I think back to my high school days, I told some of my teachers what my plans were in 10 years, and they just look at you and they're like, oh, go for it. And other people are like, you sure you want to do that? But yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Quick break. If you're a salon owner, sick of posting every day with nothing to show for it, or you're staring at the gaps in the books again next week, well, we can help. So book a free call with my team using the link in the show notes, and let's map out a Google strategy that brings in dream clients without the daily hustle. Now, back to the episode.
Obviously, you and Whitney aren't just business owners. You guys have 2 small kids as well, and the juggle is fucking real. I hear you. Both, it's full on. So talk us through like how you juggle business and parenthood as well.
So becoming parents was probably, for the first time, was one of the most eye-opening experiences that Whitney and I have ever experienced. From Whitney training every single day, because that's her part of her identity and what she loves, and competing at a high level. Like in the beginning, she actually hid it from a lot of people, and people were like, "Why are you not sparring? Why are you not why are you not having the sparring's contact?" And she was, "Oh no, just having some time off." And then within a couple of months, people knew that she was pregnant. But for her as a business owner and as a competitor and as someone that really has this as part of her identity, it was very challenging because she had pregnancy where she was vomiting every day, brushing her teeth.
With Bjorn?
Yeah, she'd eat the wrong thing and she'd vomit. Correct. And for us, it was kind of like, fuck, how are we going to navigate this really challenging period? Because, someone would call in sick and, there was no one to cover, and I'd have to run in, or we'd have to come in, and, you'd get customers asking, like, you're pregnant, should you really be coaching in an environment like this? And Winnie's like, why not? This is who I am, and this is what I am. And it took time for her to really kind of come into that ownership of, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. But there was a lot of backhanded ridicule comments in terms of just like, you probably shouldn't be doing that. And the other thing that I really, really admire throughout that whole process and journey for her, which was so many ups, so many downs in terms of her own personal way her body responded to that, was that she did train the whole way through. And yeah, again, just the comments for people was a big thing. As business owners, I think the one thing that we learnt when Bjorn came into our lives was that what truly matters. And when I say what truly matters is like, we used to live for, fight events on the weekend. It was everything for us. And, we would put everything ahead of our own selves in terms of helping people and trying to serve people, which is what we do. But when, a child comes into your life, you really start to realize and wonder, like, what truly matters in the lives of you as a human being. Because one thing that I don't really talk much about is my upbringing, living in a gym. My dad and my mum, that was their family business, and they worked very, very hard. And when it was time for bed, like the house was connected to the gym, we would have to say good night to Dad. And Dad was so busy holding pads for fighters, and he didn't have a lot of time, and he was just so in the zone that like a lot of the time we didn't really get the best experience. And for me, growing up in that, I didn't want the same for my son coming into that, if that makes sense. And realize it was like, what do we truly want out of life? Well, number one, we need to raise good humans, and that comes down to being present. And whilst at work, we work hard and we focus and we're dedicated and we're disciplined. But when we're at home, we've got to be present. And that was something that we really had to work hard to kind of like separate, if you will.
I love that you've spoken to that,
On
because
the
I think about
weekend,
that a lot myself. I just think it's so important for business owners, and when you're a kid, when you have small kids, like, you don't get this time back, you know. You need to really relish every moment in these earlier years, because like their belief systems are formed in the first 0 to 7 years of their life, you know. So like we have to show up as much as we possibly can, you know, to make sure our kids grow up in the world and can navigate, to make sure that they're also leaving a mark on the world that is of kindness and, you know, isn't going to fucking destroy the world. You know what I mean? That comes back to childhood, you know. So I'm glad you've spoken to that, because my business journey also is definitely shaped by my upbringing too, because my mom and dad, which I think you already know this, but my mom and dad broke up when I was really quite young. So my mom reared 3 of us on her own, 3 girls on her own, when was working so many jobs to keep a roof over her head. So, and she was busy and dad wasn't around. So like the meaning of presence is how I live my life. Like it's very hard though at the same time when you have a business that demands your attention, and then you need to be fully present, because that is what's the most important thing, you know. So I'm so glad you've spoken to that, because I don't think many people speak about that enough, and the importance of that.
Look, at the end of the day, as business owners, as parents, it's kind of trying to, like you talk about kindness, it's important, but compassion and empathy, and also understanding that I want my children to understand that when you work hard and you focus and you do something really well and you're in it for long enough, eventually the result will come. Because I believe we live in a world now where everything is very quick. It's a touch of a button, it's at your door. But sometimes you need to roll your sleeves up, and you need to get dirty, and you need to have your heart broken a couple of times. You need to learn that sometimes life and the people that you believe are your friends are not always your friends. And understand that there's good and there's bad. You can't expect always something.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I love that. Like, there is a lot of tough love that you do have to learn in business, for sure. And I think, you know, I've definitely struggled, I think, going from 1 to 2 kids myself, and you know that your time is just even divided even more, and you'll never be able to give all of yourself to just one kid, and then you have to come back to yourself and be like, we're not a traditional family, because, you know, our kids are watching us lead by example, and we're not meant to solve every single problem for our child. We're there for the moments that matter the most, and that's all that matters, you know. But business owners that have kids, I know that struggle is really real, and it's carving out that time and letting go of that dead weight of people that just don't add value to your life, you know. You probably may have, like, obviously you guys going from 1 to 2 and then running a business. How was that for you guys?
Well, now having 2 children and 3 businesses is like having 5 children, to be honest. Everyone needs a time and attention, and everyone needs a focus. But again, it's coming back to the boundaries we draw, so that, you know, we're not working at all these times where you're getting hounded with DMs from, you know, when you're coaching people and you are on the mats from time to time, people are drawn to your magnetism in terms of like, hey, how can I do A, B, and C? And they want to know how they can get the result quicker. And naturally, we want to help everyone, but at the time, you need to make sure the time that you're...
It's not coming at a cost to your family. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah. So how big is your team now?
We've got a team of 20 to 25, including, you know, part-time, full-time casuals and that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then members between 3 businesses?
Between 3 businesses, about 650 to 700 at the moment. It's a great community. And I think sometimes one thing that I've always been a big stickler for is trying to be professional in an industry that I wanted to add a level of professionalism to a business that maybe didn't have it once upon a time. In the 80s and the 90s, when I was growing up, fight sports, combat sports and gyms were usually a thug sport. Regardless of only the thugs, and men did it. And that's why I wanted to break the stereotype back in 2012 and say that, like, you know, ladies, this is a great way to build your confidence. It's a great way to feel in shape and powerful. And, you know, if push comes to shove, you can look after yourself. And I feel like I've done that. And the reason I talk about professionalism and the business and the industry is because I think sometimes people mistake Champions Gym for being a franchise. And I'm like, no, it's run by a family, by real people. We care. You know, you might not always get it right, but we strive to give our best where we can.
Well, it definitely shows.
I'm trying to break away from that so people understand.
Yeah.
Sometimes people,
well, I think you're in a league of your own. Yeah, I love that. And obviously, you guys now have been clients for 2 years, imagine. So I'll never forget the first time I met you. And you're on the call and you're like, Sonja, you just tell me why I should work with you. And I'm like, What you mean? Like, tell you why you should work with me. And you had just previously had a horrendous experience, from what I remember. You were with another big agency. Can you talk us through that experience, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so we joined an agency that promised the world and delivered fuck all, essentially. For us, it was, we had a really bad experience in terms of the service promise and the actual delivery of the service that was received wasn't great.
So what did they promise you?
So we signed up to the Facebook ads, Google ads, the SEO, the whole kit and caboodle. And over 13 months, the contract value was ridiculous. And sometimes when you think someone's product is as good as they promise, you think that, okay, cool, the investment is worth the while. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be the case. And it got to a stage where when you got an amazing someone to look after you, that was great. And the minute that person left or not left, moved on, you were kind of palmed off to someone, which was fine. I didn't have a problem with that. The only thing was the staff were just subpar in terms of their performance. And, you know, you'd ask a question, you wouldn't get an answer. You'd make a complaint, you wouldn't get a response. The results just weren't happening, essentially. And for us, we've kind of felt a bit hard done by in that the investment had been made and the trust had been put into something that wasn't getting the result. And when you were asking for an explanation, that wasn't really happening. And there was no justification, which for me, when you're doing something in business, like you're doing something in a combat sport, you do something, you're not getting the result, something's missing. So logically, you want to know what's happening, and that wasn't kind of happening. So when I kind of reached out to yourself, we were kind of in the same, I think Whitney was in the same group with you.
Yeah, I think Jessie from Pink Tank, didn't she, or Soul Tank, she introduced us, I think. Jessie Griffiths.
Was it the social club as well? Because I remember you presented
True Social Club, yeah, it was, yeah. And then Whitney got in contact, and yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's exactly
So I
what
was like,
happened.
we need someone that can just help us with SEO because like we took back the ads and we were doing it ourselves in-house, but the SEO is something that's really challenging for us in terms of it's always changing, it's always evolving. There's always something new coming out, which I believe is something you've got to be on top of all the time.
You do,
and that's
yeah.
something you're talking about. And it got to a point where we had our first conversation. I was like, Sonja, I'm fucking over this bullshit. So tell me exactly why we should work together, and you know, if it works, great. If not, I'll just keep looking. And probably a little bit blunt, but when you get to a stage of frustration, it's like, who can solve my problem? I've got a problem. Who can solve it, essentially? And if you're going to solve it, at least tell me how you're going to do it, and if, you know, the risk involved. Because at the end of the day, SEO is a game where it takes time, and it's sometimes going to work, sometimes not. I understand that.
And I'm so glad you've spoken to that because, yeah, SEO takes such a long time, as you know, but it's also about trusting the game and also making sure people aren't blowing smoke up your ass either. You know, you need to.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, and like I think that that's really important to be transparent that you can promise these things when it comes to Google, and there is a lot of people out there that do promise the world and don't deliver, and that's exactly why the industry has a bad name, because there are so many cowboys out there that just see, oh yeah, this is a massive need, and then they take advantage of that because the client is none the wiser. But like the reality is, with SEO, there's like 5,000 changes that happen every single year on Google. So it is a full-time job. It is very full on to keep up with that. And especially now, obviously, with all the AIO changes, to make sure you're optimized for chatbots as well. It's just a full-time job in itself. But I'm very glad that you came on board, because I think the first few meetings, you definitely were on the fence. And then we broke through that, and then we became besties for life then after that. I think it was like around the 3-month mark, I think, you know, and then we're like, oh, loved the meetings, and yeah, we had the really good banter. And yeah, so can you explain just the difference in, I suppose, customer service to begin with? That would be fabulous.
So what I've noticed the most, so one thing that I really take my hat off to your team, Sonja, is that you're very honest and very upfront. If there's a question and maybe it can't be answered the way that it's not a straight answer, you'll be like, well, you know, Pete, you're wanting this result quickly, but it takes time, for example. So what we're going to do, you know, I'm going to take your concern, and we're going to work on how we can, get more eyeballs on your brand and let more people know about it, which is great. I really respect the honesty. That's a big thing. The next thing is a personal touch, that you always add yourself as, the leader of what you do. Like, that's very powerful in terms of adding your flair and your personality, and, showing up and being your most authentic self, which I think is very powerful.
Thank you.
And that kind of shines through. You also talk about your battles and, your life as a business owner, as a parent. And I think for myself and Whitney as business owners of Champions Gym, we can personally relate to that, and we respect that as well.
Thank you, Pamorn. I wasn't expecting such lovely compliments, but thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I just think it is very important in an industry that's not regulated, that there's just so many false promises that are made. And I think that what does definitely set us apart, which what we've been told by many clients, is that the education piece, like educating you on the actual process and the transparency there, you know, because you just don't know when it's a whole other beast in itself. And now, obviously, 2 years on, like we've seen some really good results for you guys. Like, we're very, very proud of that. Like, your overall website traffic is 70% of your overall website traffic is coming from SEO, which is the work that we've been doing very hard for the last 2 years. So, really, really happy to see that, and seeing you now ranking for a whole host of other keywords that aren't just, these are the only ones I want to rank for. We have so many now that we're ranking for, which is really lovely to see that traction, because it is of the numbers game. What kind of tangible stuff have you seen in the last 2 years yourself, like in terms of the growth of the gym? Like, what have you been seeing internally?
I think one thing that's really important is having the right people that come through the door that want to work with Champions Gym and what we're about. In the past, we've worked with people that potentially weren't a great fit for what we do and what we offer. I'm going to be honest, Champions Gym is, for some, it's not for everyone, in that our approach is very direct, honest, and straight up with people. It's very black and white. Sure, there's grey areas from time to time, but sometimes I think people want a solution, but they're not willing to make sacrifice in their own lives to get the results. And having people that come through the door that understand what we're about, they've kind of been educated about how it happens, and then coming to us, and then surrendering themselves to the process and trusting that process to getting a result. Having those people to come to us has been a big game changer for us in terms of working with our marketing side of things, but also in working with you guys in the SEO.
Absolutely. Because if I look back to where we were 2 years ago, there was roughly around 1,000 words ranking on Google. And now we're looking at like about 3,500 keywords now we were ranking on Google for, which is fabulous, because it is that numbers piece, and, you know, attracting your ideal client on the search engine that wouldn't already have found you, but they've found you because now there's no more obstacles around your website. So now the floodgates are open. It's open season. So people are coming to you guys. But I have to commend you. You're one of the most fabulous clients that we have on our books. Like, you're very easy to deal with. And it's just easy when you find people that you resonate with and you're on the same level. Because as you know, Pamorn, we don't take on every client. It has to be the right fit from a personality piece as well to begin with. Because if we can't work together, it's just not going to work. So I just want to say thank you so much again for your business. The last 2 years, you've been an incredible client, and I couldn't think of anyone better to have on as a guest today. So I really appreciate you being here, and I really respect your time given how busy you are. For any of my listeners listening on the sidelines that want to know more about Champions Gym, I'd love for you to give just a quick insight as to where they can contact you, any challenges that you have coming up.
Absolutely. So for anyone that wants to change their lives, they're tired of running on a treadmill, picking things up, putting them down, and they want something a little bit more different that's going to help build their strength, their confidence, their discipline, and their change their lives the way fight sports have changed my own and my wife Whitney. Encourage you to come down and check out Champions Gym. You can find it at championsgym.com.au. If you want to have a bit of what do you call it these days, a sneak peek or a
free try?
Yeah, they've got all that. But if you want to have a little bit of a squiz about what we do, you can find us on Instagram at Champions Gym. But yeah, if you search it, you'll find it, because Sonja and the team do a great job.
Oh, thank you so much, legend. Well, thank you for being here, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed it, Sonja.
If today's episode spoke to your salon soul, then hit subscribe so you don't miss the next round of strategy and support. For more help filling your books without the burnout, then check the show notes and you'll find a link to the Search Republic, where we build simple Google strategies that actually work. And if we're not already connected, come and say hi to me on the gram at Sonja the Search Queen, and I'd love to hear what landed for you today.